Hey guys, what's going on? It's your boy SpotTheOzzie, aka the NRL Fantasy Fanatic, coming back at you with round number 1 NRL Fantasy Picks for you guys, the community. Once again, I'm so excited about this season because there is a dramatic amount of changes, a whole bunch of new players, a lot of things to talk about, a lot of things to look at statistics-wise. What's the best picks? What are the bad picks? Who are the traps? Who are the rookies to pick from? What are we all doing? And before I start anything, can I just ask for you guys, if you're new to the channel, please hit that subscribe button down below. Support your local NRL Fantasy Fanatic on YouTube, who's going to be delivering videos every Wednesday night live with you guys. I'm going to be interacting with the chat as well that I can see on the right. It's a live feed. So anything that you guys have to ask me about your NRL fantasy team or questions you may have, I will answer them. I'll probably answer them at the end of the stream, but I'll start to bank them up and I'll interact with you guys while I talk about a fair amount of few things. But as you can see, we've got a whole new headquarters here. Look at this. We're at the NRL bunker for our first video. Amazing. Amazing stuff. We just got Maxi, the boy who just joined the boys. Thank you so much for the subscription, dude. Be sure to hit that like button down below, boys. If you're not already in our Discord, be sure to join the Discord. Discord link is down below as well. And my league code is also going to be down in the description down below. So if you want to join the league and verse me and whoever else is in that league, be sure to join. It's free. There's no, you can just join. It's a classic league. There's no draft. It's just classic. Classic is the best of the best, better than the rest. But a mad shout out to all the usual groups that support me and vice versa. There's the NRL Reddit. There's the NRL Fantasy Renegades. The NRL Fantasy Fanatics, who have their own forum. There are a bunch of other resources that you can use, like the Facebook group, Everything Rugby League, etc., etc. I'll probably jump a little bit more into detail about using those resources to their utmost best the following week. So this week, I just want to focus on my team, the changes that are before us right now. And I can see there's a fair amount of people already in the chat. I can already see there's a fair amount of people. I'll just say a quick hello to everyone that's already in here. Liam, mate, Haynes Game, PUBG Guy, Lakeisha, Cheeseburger Eater, Natruno, Adcar. We got Justin Mace, Raggers, Idamari Dalba Sotorinso, Henry Diorleans. We got Blake Malone, WSF, aka Wade Phil, Kurt MC. What's going on, Big Curdy? Little Wayne, Vegan Bear, Jake Passeris. We got Benny Kins. How are you, big fella? Hey, Trent Anderson. Hey, Tiger Kid. What's going on? Fat Blunt. We've also got, who's that? Is that Fergus Berry, Julian Carisco, Cucumber, Woody HHG. Just name the guys who'll be able to catch the stream from the start. Without any further ado, I'm going to open up the curtain and I'm going to show you my NRL fantasy team for the start of this season for your eyes and for anyone else's eyes that comes to watch the video later as a bit of a podcast. Here it is. Is this the right button? Is this going to do it? Hopefully it doesn't do anything else. There it is. Boom. It's there. It's right in front of us. It's before your own eyes. So there was a dramatic amount of changes for this season from the last season in regards to fantasy format, and that's going to make it utmost exciting. I've got some brief notes, like one-liners to get me going here, but the biggest change that we've got from last season to this season is the amount of players that you can possibly pick. Now, it's been dumbed down to some respects, down to 21 players, rather than have 25 players. That makes it a lot easier if you're new to the game, but it also makes it pretty difficult as well at the same time to get your established 17 dream team at the end of the day, because you have less resources in order to do that. Less chances of picking up rookies for that extended bench that could propel you to rich fortunes in this game. So it's going to be an interesting one to pick of. The other biggest change here as well is the prices of the players. They scale from anything from a rookie price of $212K or $228K all the way up to Cameron Smith at $917,000, which is roughly about 10% of your NRL fantasy cap. That is a lot of money to put on one player alone, given that you have to fill the roster with another 20 players following that person as well. So there's a lot of things you're going to have to take into, take into accord in order to achieve the best fantasy team. The other thing is the bench is completely different this year. You are not limited to positional bench positions. Is that the best way to put it? So in other words, instead of having your defined to only having one bench hooker, you can now have a whole bench of hookers. You could be a PIMP if you wanted to be, because at the end of the day, your whole team could be hookers from the first guy down to the last guy. And it's not a bad strategy because hookers are generally the better scoring players of any other position in regards to averages if they are the starting hooker and if they are going to be playing 80 minutes. Other positions following that is, of course, second row, front row, and then your utility backlines are a little bit, hey, how you going, from your halves to your fullbacks, back to your centers, to your wings. So the biggest thing here is you want to take advantage of that by stacking your bench with players that are going to be scoring in those 4 reserve slots, and in the emergency bench, extending it to rookies who are going to propel you into some sort of a financial gain. So I'm going to, before I further go into all the formulas, one thing I will say about the formulas this season, as far as I know, it has not been released. It has not been released what the formula is going to be for the players. And by that, I mean, say if you're starting at a rookie price of $228,000, if you were to average a score of 50, and the average score for a 50-point player would be $600,000, which would increase you by $370K. Last season, you had to do that over 8 games. The season prior, it was over 5 games. The fantasy rule is generally that you have to get a player to have their price evaluated at a more closer kind of digit to what it actually is 5 games. I've got the 5-game rule. We don't know what the formula is going to be this year, though. That's the only thing. Given the price changes, given how everything's a little bit if-so, fact-so, I haven't read anything solid that's going to define what the price is going to be. So I'm going to take it as a 5-game rule. So if you have any rookies, you want to make sure that they're going to be at least able to play 4 games minimum, 5 games preferably. 6 games would be a bonus. But if they're only going to play 1 to 2 games this season, they're not going to have their price increase or justify it against other rookies. And a really good example of that is the half for the Roosters who's coming in for the injured Luke Keary, who is, from the top of my memory, let me have a think. I had it a second ago. I'll just have to pop it up. He played for Parramatta the prior season. If I go back to halves, Roosters, I'm going to Mitch Cornish, of course. So Mitch Cornish is on to play maybe 1 to 2 games while Luke Keary has a bit of a jaw injury. He's $228,000, which is pretty, it's the cheapest you can go, other than the $212K players like Sione Katoa. So the reality is, would I be looking at picking up players like Mitch Cornish? And the answer is definitely not, because their longevity in the sport is not going to be around. So you want to avoid players like that for now, while there are still so many good resources on the bench. Oh, in saying that, there are a whole bunch of rookies out there at the moment that you can nab. So I'll go through my complete game lineup from start to finish. That way it gives you a better idea. And my whole team is publicly available right here. This is my team as it's finalized. Unless there are last minute game changes to team list or any updated news, this is what it's going to be. So, of course, captain role is going to be Cameron Smith at hooker. Now, originally, I was not going to be picking up Cameron Smith for the simple fact that I like to play around Cameron Smith at the start of the season because I know a lot of people love to pick him up. In fact, look at him now. He's got 37.7% ownership. So if Cameron Smith has a bad opening 1 or 2, 3 games, and I can pick up someone like a Cameron McInnes or a Damien Cook who can outplay them, maybe, possibly, then I could possibly get Cameron Smith in a couple of rounds, which was the case that I did last season with Cameron McInnes, who scored 92 points in the first game. The only thing is that they're missing Cooper Cronk from their halves combination. Not only that, but Billy Slater's also injured, so young fella from the halves is going to be going back to fullback, who is, of course, Cameron Munster, which means Cameron Smith's going to be doing a lot more kicking than what he usually does from each season. I'm going to predict that he's going to be probably doing about 20 to 30% more of a kicking duty than he ever has before. So that should make up for any slacking that he should have in scores in case he does indeed go off or just doesn't have as brilliant of a game as he usually does. So I'm thinking the kicking is going to make up for it as much. Robbie Rochow was a really interesting pickup for me. This guy was absolutely insane a couple of seasons back at the Newcastle Knights. Everyone wanted to grab on him because he was at a rookie price and he played phenomenal. 40s, 50s. He could play long minutes. He could do 50-minute stints and then be pulled off. He was absolutely insane. And then he drifted off to the Rabbitohs. And from the Rabbitohs, that's when all the problems kicked in. They had a really weird rotating bench of second rowers, and Robbie Rochow couldn't find himself in the 17-player roster, period. He just couldn't do it. It was, I couldn't believe that such a talent wasn't getting a run, given that the players who were given a run in the Sydney Rabbitohs outfit for their front and second row. So Robbie Rochow comes to the West Tigers, who have a smaller pack than last year. I mean, they do have Russell Packer this year, but they've lost the likes of Aaron Woods. And it looks like he's starting second row, and he also has dual position front and second row. He's only 312k. That's 100k less than a rookie price. You want guys like that. He's overlooked by far. He's probably one of the most overlooked players right now, in my opinion. In my opinion, he's overlooked. Yes, he does, as Blake Malone just pointed out, he does have a little bit of an injury history, but I think he's good to go. I don't think they would have started him at the start of the season in the starting position had he have been some sort of an injury or a niggle. I think he's good to go. I think he's going to be in a good place. I think a lot of people are going to overlook him because no one talked about him in the preseason. And that's one thing a lot of people had asked me as well. I just want to jump back to that. A lot of people the last couple of weeks said, oh, where are the NRL fantasy videos? I didn't want to release any videos because the team list hadn't come out and it was all going to be speculation. And with all the new team lists that came out this week, a lot of it was speculation, boys and girls, because guess what? At the end of the day, there was so many rookies starting, a handful of players out injured. And now that we actually have a base and bones, I can put together a team and actually be like, this is going to be my team. So Robbie Rochow, I think, is going to be a really great pick. And let's say he doesn't fire up and he only gets like maybe 30 or so points. At the end of the day, he only needs 21 points to break even. If he scores mid-30s, he's going to go up. He's going to go up by about $100,000 more easily. So I think he's going to be very overlooked. He's only 5.5% owned right now. That is absolutely insane. Paul Vaughan, on the other hand, I've picked him up. He's at his peak price, $799k. But looking at the Dragons pack, I will pull it up right now for you guys. It is going to be James Graham starting at Paul Vaughan at 10. From the bench, they've got Leilua, who I don't believe will be front row. I think he'll be second row. Kurt Mann, who's utility in the back line. Lisa Namar, who could come in for front row, probably for James Graham more than anything. And Halmy Selly, who traditionally does come in for second and front row as well. So he might come in the rotation. But I think Paul Vaughan's going to be good to go. I think they're going to rely on Paul Vaughan to be their front row guy that plays the most amount of minutes in that team. And he's an absolute fantasy point scoring machine. Given that the bench that they've got right now, given the fact that James Graham is going to be the other starting front row forward, I thought I didn't want to miss an opportunity, and I've jumped at Paul Vaughan. So I've jumped on the Paul Vaughan bandwagon. Not too many people own him, 6.2%, not that high. Our other young fellow, of course, is Angus Crichton at 11.4% owned. One of the most highest players in fantasy at the moment. I'm taking a huge risk getting him this early because he could go down in value, but I think he's going to be solid. I think he's going to be a solid captain, vice captain. It looks to me in the Sydney South Sydney Rabbitohs, in their lineup, it looks to me like he's going to be possibly 80 minutes again. I know that they've got a fair few amount of second rollers in there, Tyrell, Cameron Murray, but I think you'll find John Sutton won't be getting the minutes. Mark Nicholls probably won't be getting the minutes. I know he's in the front row, and that's a little bit if-so-facto, but he's traditionally a second row rookie. Sam Burgess doesn't traditionally play 80 minutes, especially last year. He was not playing anywhere close to 80 minutes. So I feel like Angus Crichton might be our man. So I'm gonna jump on him as my other gun. And the other one, of course, is Jack de Belin. I don't believe Jack de Belin, there you go, Ice Battle just said that Angus Crichton is a must-have. I think he is. The way I evaluate my guns, my absolute top-tier players is, look, at the end of the day, I want them in my final 17. So if I can grab them now, I'm going to grab them now. I don't think they're going to go down in value. If he does go down in value, it's probably going to be because he got injured or something silly happened. It's not going to be because he did poor performances. And one poor performance isn't going to drag his score down that much that someone else can jump on him. So Angus Crichton is my boy. I've got him in there. It was actually my first pick, and I was going to pick a team around him. The next guy I've got in my second row who's playing lock, Jack de Belin. He's always solid. He's always 110% solid. I think he's going to be good to go. He is going to be in the bench rotation, so he won't be playing 80 minutes. But I think he's going to be playing the optimum amount of minutes, so I've grabbed him in there. He could come down in value. There are other alternatives, like possibly bringing down Robbie Rochow and bringing in Jesse Bromwich, who's undervalued again. But I like Jack de Belin. I think he's solid. I'm going to stick with him. Our other boy is, of course, Slade Griffin, who's going to be starting hooker for the Newcastle Knights. He might not be playing 80 minutes at hooker, but even 50 minutes at hooker traditionally has shown players that do that usually score about 30, 40 points. And I think if he can prove himself in the early rounds, he's going to maybe possibly nab a spot at hooker for 80 minutes. That's kind of to be seen more than anything else. I mean, if you look at their bench, they've got guys who can play hooker. I'll just pull it up right now. Newcastle. Brock Lamb can play hooker, but he can also go to the halves. Jamie Bureau was traditionally a hooker as well at Manly, as well as second row, so he could come in. The odd thing about Jamie Bureau as well is that he's captain, vice captain, captain Mitchell Pearce, but he's starting off the bench. I'm really surprised about that, but he is. Now the thing is, Slade Griffin, he's dual position, second row and hooker. So if you don't have him in your first 14 players on the starting team, you should at least have him on your interchange. You need to grab him. He's only valued at $382,000. That is absolutely peanuts for a guy of that value who's bound to go. I'm estimating he's going to be going up possibly to about $500,000 to $600,000 runos. And moving down to the halves, BJLT just said no Thurston. Okay, here's my outtake with halves. Halves are very up and down. Halves are the most up and down players that you'll see. One week they can score 60, the next week they can score 20. It's just the position. So if I can eliminate my halves by putting in a second row player, if they have a dual position status, which Bryce Cartwright does, I'm going to do that every time. Looking at your squad, if you could fill in the fullback position and your center position with a second rower, then you would. Unfortunately, this season, there's not many good options at low base price value to have any second rowers playing in your centers this year, just yet. So that's a little bit unfortunate. But Bryce Cartwright, he's starting lock at the Titans. Yes, he didn't have the best team. He didn't have the best season last year. He was injury prone with the plate in his leg, and it just went undone from there. He had a lot of off-season issues as well, but possibly plucking him from Penrith and putting him up into the Gold Coast might clear his head a little bit. But the reality is Bryce Cartwright, again, is going to be one of the highest scoring players for the Titans. He's valued at $325K. If you do not have him, I don't know what you're doing, because 46.1% other coaches at the moment have him. So if you're not looking at picking him up, I've got no idea what you're thinking. What does he have to do to break even? He has to get 22 points playing lock. That just means he could make 22 tackles playing lock and do nothing else and still break even. Everything else is going to be a bonus. I think you need to have him. I think he's a must-have. Like, you need to get him. We've also got Connor Watson. I just got him in the halves because he's undervalued at the moment. That's purely it. He didn't play the minutes at the Roosters last season. So the whole basis around him is that he's undervalued. That's it. I don't think he's going to be one of the highest scoring halves in the game. He could surprise us and be one of the top three. Although I think, Nathan Cleary, Jonathan Thurston, etc. are going to be your better half scorers. I just wanted him for the cheap price out value. In my centers are a little bit interesting because we've got Jarryd Hayne and Pita Hiku. Very, very strange picks. Jarryd Hayne is going to be playing center when he's traditionally a fullback. I mean, he's played everywhere. He's played in the halves. He played on the wing when he started. He played in the halves under Ricky Stewart. He played center in the last couple of Origins, but he's a better fullback. And if anyone of you guys watched the trial game between Newcastle and Parramatta, Bevan French started at fullback, Jarryd Hayne started at center. As soon as it didn't start to work, Brad Arthur made Bevan French on the wing and put Jarryd Hayne back on fullback. And all of a sudden, everything started to gel again. Everything started to work. It was a fluid system. The cogs were starting to tune up. And I was really shocked and I was surprised that Jarryd Hayne was named in the centers. In saying that, I still think he's going to be one of the best scoring centers in the game. He's not going to be doing a better job scoring at center than he has at fullback. The same can be said about Josh Dugan. Josh Dugan traditionally scores about 10 more fantasy points a game when he plays fullback than center, unless he's scoring tries, which is, you can't count on try scoring. Like, that is not a good statistic. That is super coach belief. If you're basing players on try scoring ability, that's not going to be a solid outcome for you. I'm just going to put it out there right now. So, got Jarryd Hayne in the center. At the moment, he is dual position to wing fullback, so I can play with him a little bit in case there is a surprise center that comes up down the line. So that's going to be an interesting one to kind of see. I am hoping late mail does put Jarryd Hayne back to fullback. I'd love to see that. That's where he should be, in my opinion. As a Parramatta fan. As a Parramatta fan that wants to see them do well, I think that's what they should be doing. Pita Hiku had a disappointing last season. He had a disappointing season prior to that at the Panthers, and he probably had a more disappointing season prior to that at Manly. But he's so undervalued, and you know he's going to be keeping his spot. And that can't be said about a lot of these rookie centers and wing fullbacks. And at the end of the day, centers and wing fullbacks, especially wingers and centers, they are inconsistent. One week, you can score 50 by scoring 2 tries. Next week, you can do absolutely nothing. So I've brought him in because I'm going to treat him like Uarte last season. Uarte was heavily undervalued last season, and then he went up by another $200,000. So I brought Pita Hiku in, not because I think he's going to end up at my final 17 at the end of the season, because he's so cheap, and I don't want to put any more resource or any more dollars towards that particular position. So that's going to be interesting to see what happens. He's got Fusatua playing outside of him, and as you guys know, Fusatua is a try-scoring machine, so hopefully you can get a couple of more try-assist, and we can go from there. But that's kind of like what I'm thinking at the moment. We know he's going to be at the starting 14, week in, week out for Pita Hiku. Just going to grab a quick drink, and we'll go from there. I do see there's a couple of questions building up in the chat. I will answer those by the end of the stream. Just trying to keep up the momentum. We got Kalyn Ponga and fullback. 34.2% of you guys agree with me and have picked him up as well. Heavily undervalued because he didn't play the amount of games he should have been playing last year. Not only that, he has as a full-time spot at fullback for the Newcastle Knights. He's $552,000. He's going to be playing with some pretty good halves in Pearce and also Watson. So I'm expecting some sort of synergy between their fullback and their halves combination, maybe for him to get over. Look, Ponga doesn't need 80 minutes to get a good score. All he needs is a couple of deep kicks to him if Newcastle are able to hold them up in their own half. Deep kicks to him at fullback and a couple of good runs and a couple of good steps, tackle bust, and all of a sudden he's a fantasy point scoring machine. So I've banged my buck on Ponga because I think he's an absolute must-have. I think you can't mess with something like that. James Tedesco was a given. He's gone to the Roosters outfit. Generally speaking, any fullback for the Roosters scores pretty well. Except for Michael Gordon, who was a little bit if-so-facto, but he doesn't have that wow factor. Prior to him, Rochow was absolutely amazing. I'm expecting James Tedesco behind a good forward pack to score as many tries as he did last season, which obviously wasn't that many with the Tigers because they couldn't put him in the position that he needed to be. But he's a good ball runner. He's a good runner from any deep kicks that he can get, like Kalyn Ponga. He loves to tackle bust. He also loves to hog the ball. If you noticed any highlight videos, he loves to throw the dummy out to the wing and take it himself. So that's good for fantasy. Maybe not so good for the Roosters, but I think behind Cooper Cronk, I think he's going to be fine. I think he's going to be in a good spot. be set up quite a bit, and that forward pack's going to be looking pretty ship and sharp. Sione Katoa, now he was an interesting one. 1212k, one of the cheapest price you can get a player at. He's got the wing position for the Cronulla Sharks. I've jumped on him. He is a tackle busting machine in regards to if you've seen him play at the lower levels. Now, generally speaking, when a lower level player comes up to the big dogs, it doesn't transfer over to that because it's a whole different ball game. Playing any feeder leagues to the NRL isn't comparable by any means whatsoever. I would definitely not be picking him. I would definitely be picking him up. If you don't want to put him in your starting 17, which I might change last minute, then pick up someone else. But put him at least in your emergency. He is bound to make money. It looks like he's got the spot for good. He's edged out Aaron Gray, which means he must be doing something correctly. So I'm very excited to see what he can do. And he's kind of like my dark horse in my team. Very undervalued. I've got him in as a rookie. That's purely it. You got to have your rookies. He's one of them. Now, here's another interesting one. We're going to our interchange bench to our 4 players that count towards our fantasy score. We've got Ligi Sau. Ligi Sau is starting lock for the New Zealand squad because Simon Mannering has a 4-week injury, a shoulder injury that he's picked up in the preseason. So Ligi Sau should be able to play maybe 3-4 games in order to get that score up. And one of the bigger reasons, I know it doesn't meet the 5-game criteria that I was talking about earlier, but the reality is he should be able to score pretty well. He's going to be playing from lock position. If I can have a lock of my interchange for 228k, I'm going to pick him up. The reality is he's probably going to be playing 2 to 3 games. Yes, there are other second rows that could take his position on the bench like Bunty or Foa, but I'm quite confident that they've put him in there for Simon Mannering's position for a very good reason. So I think he's the good one to pick up. Our other boy, Damien Cook. Damien Cook, in my opinion, again, is a must-have. Simply because the Rabbitohs are looking for an 80-minute hooker. That's him. Damien Cook. Our one and only. Our savior. When Damien Cook plays 80 minutes, he is a 50 to 60 point scoring fantasy machine, baby. I would definitely be picking up Damien Cook. I don't know why you wouldn't want to pick him up. His break-even is 34. Reality is, Robbie Farah is on the extended bench, man. He is not going to be playing, as far as I'm concerned, he won't be playing for the Sydney South Rabbitohs unless something like a freak accident happens, Damien Cook gets injured. But you can say that about any player. Any of these guys can get injured. If so, fact so. You got to bank on Damien Cook in your hooker spot as a backup. As I said at the start of the video, if I could have 21 hookers instead of wingers, centers, halves, I would do it 110% of the time. Papalii, the younger brother, is also going to be starting in the second row for New Zealand. It's the same story as Ligi Sau. Is this spot permanent? Possibly not. He is going to become a dual position because he is dubbed in the front row. If he plays enough games or if he does start in the second row, they might change the rule. They might actually make him dual position because that's where he started at the start of the season. He is going to be in the rotation. He's not going to be playing 80 minutes, but I expect a starting second rower to at least score 50, 40, 30 points minimum, you know? So that's why I've got him in there. I think he's going to go up in value. He only has to hit 19, break even, and then everything up above from there is a bonus for me. We've also got our boy Pita Godinet. Now, 0.0% own this guy at the moment. That's because Pita was not added to the NRL fantasy register until today. Who is he? What's his go? What's his story? He played for Manly 2 seasons ago, and prior to that, he played for New Zealand at the starting hooker position. He only played maybe 1 or 2 games for Manly. That's why a lot of people don't remember him. He does play for the Samoan international team, and if you had watched him, he's absolutely a speed freak machine. He loves to take the ball himself from dummy half. He loves to throw a good dummy. He loves to take the line on. He does get over now again. He's $228,000 rookie price. He's starting hooker. I don't know why you wouldn't want to pick him up. He is a must-have, again, for the very same reasons as I've been talking about hookers who are very cheap. Our next couple of players are our emergency players who are going to be playing in different spots. We got Nicholls, who's going to be starting prop, number 10 for the Sydney South Rabbitohs. Is he going to be there permanently? Possibly. Do I expect him to score some points? Yes. Same theory behind my other second rows are going to be starting as well. Richie Kenner seems to have the wing spot for the Rabbitohs at the moment. I've got him in my roster. I think he's going to be good to go. I think he's going to evaluate after he's going to reevaluate his price after 5 or 6 games, and then you can kind of look at what needs to happen from there. I've got a spare spot here because I'm not sure who to pick up. I'm thinking it's going to be Corey Thompson, who's starting wing. I'll just put him in right now. Corey Thompson is the starting winger for the West Tigers, but he could also be a trap. Because David Norfoluma, he's bumped David Norfoluma off the side, which is really odd because David Norfoluma is usually a very solid player for the Tigers. So I don't know how long Corey Thompson is going to be there. I don't know if it's going to be like maybe a 1 game. We'll have to wait and see. There's got to be a good reason why David Norfoluma didn't make the team this for round 1. There's got to be a really good reason. And it's not because he's injured, because there's been no media output about him being injured. Our next player is going to be Lachlan Croker, who's got the starting spot in the halves. Surprisingly, he's got Blake Green's spot in the halves for the Manly. I've put him in my emergency side. He's going to be playing 80 minutes in the halves. No doubt about that. However, he's going to be playing second fiddle to Daly Cherry Evans. So while I expect him to go up in price as a must-have in your emergency lineups, I don't think he should be in your starting team because Daly Cherry Evans will be doing most of the work, most of the running, most of the ball playing, most of the kicking. I'm presuming. We're going to have to wait and see. So I don't really want to take a chance. There are a couple of other players that I think a few people are throwing out right now. There is, of course, Matt Lodge, who was all over the media recently because of his little kerfuffle a couple of years back in America where he just randomly started breaking into someone's place or forcing himself in and then going absolutely ham at this family, which is absolutely insane. It looks like regardless of that media this week, he's going to be starting. He, at the moment, is $365,000. His break even is 25. If he gets 28 points, he's got 4K up his sleeve. Now, to me, I don't know what's going to be happening with that Broncos lineup. Do I think he's going to be in the starting 14, starting 13 all season? Not necessarily. Do I think he's got a bigger price evaluation than someone like a Mark Nicholls who's starting, but who's starting in the front row, but starting at 228K? The answer is no. I play this game like the stock market. I don't want to be in the middle. I want players who are heavily undervalued as much as they possibly be so they can hit the rooftop at a much higher peak than what Matt Lodge. Matt Lodge might make 200K. Mark Nicholls might make 343 to 400K just because if he's gotten that starting spot down to a pat. Nothing is guaranteed for Matt Lodge. Who knows? The media pressure might get to them, and after round 1, he could be kicked. He could do something really dumb with his career. There's also another player who I really like, but I didn't want to pick up as well. His name is Jai Arrow. Went from Broncos down to the Titans. Again, same story. 409K, starting position. He looks the goods, but it's just too high price for me. I look at this like the stock market. I've got my solid blue chip stocks, like my Angus Crichton, my Jack de Belin, Cameron Smith, Paul Vaughan, yep. And then I've got my low tier stocks, my penny stocks. You know, these guys like the Rich Kenners, Corey Thompsons, who I think can make the most amount of money. You've got to remember, you're playing against 100,000 other fantasy coaches. If you don't take the bigger risk, you're not going to reap it. What's that saying we got in fantasy? Risk it for the biscuit. If you make $200,000 on Matt Lodge, but the guy next to you makes $400,000 on Mark Nicholls, you're behind the 8 ball by $200,000. And that's not even guaranteed. Whereas someone who's down below will definitely get there at a much easier, how to put it, more efficiently, more reliably. That's pretty much what my settings are. That's what I'm looking at the moment. But let me have a look at everyone else at the moment. I'm going to start having a look at some of the questions. Have I missed anything? There's also Jesse Bromwich. Jesse Bromwich is heavily undervalued at the moment. I think if you want to pick him up, do it. There's nothing wrong with picking him up. I only have an extra $122,000. You don't have to spend, I get asked this every year, you don't have to spend every dollar to have the best team. You just have to be smart with your picks. The other thing to consider is that we still have 34 trades. 34 trades with 4 less players in your roster. That means you don't have to make as many changes because you don't have as many risky players on your bench. The extra 4 extended bench, someone gets injured, you have to trade them up. So there's less risk, but the same amount of trades. It's effectively a little bit more of an easier game. And I've already got an outstanding front and second row pack, and I just can't afford to bring him on. I want to bring him on, but then I'm like, I don't want to jeopardize anyone else. I want cheapies and I want high tier. I generally don't want anything in between. With a fair few exemptions in there, like Damien Cook, 503k. He'll go up in value. Slade Griffin, 382k. He's more likely to go up starting at hooker than a guy playing front row for the Broncos. But the other thing to consider, I've almost forgot, was, of course, buy planning. Buy planning this year is bull dust. It's absolutely insane. It's rubbish. It is the worst type. It's crazy. If you put your coach on, which we all do, all players either have a buy around 13, 17. If you're trying to buy plan last year, the year before that one, if you buy plan from round 1, yeah, it's a little bit feasible. Like you might avoid State of Origin players to get other guns. Fair enough. This year, if you do it, there's no point. There really is no point. You just want to put the best team on the paddock. You're not going to have 17 players come round 13 or round 17. You're just going to have to suck it up, get on with the princess, and accept that you're not going to get the best score for those rounds. That's it. Like, look at it. If you have a look at my team, let's count the number of players that have got to buy around 13. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I could possibly... We've got 4 trades during the State of Origin rounds, not 3. And it's only 2. It's only around 13 and 17 this time around for the buys. Every other player is around 17. So I'm actually looking okay for the first round 13. Round 17 is going to be a complete flip. But again, my team's going to be completely changed from then. Do not buy plan this year. It's not worth it. Buy plan closer to the round, like maybe round 7 onwards, round 8, 9. Maybe you can consider, like, I'm going to pick this player because I think at the end of the day, they're going to be doing a much better job. And they've got the State of Origin cover. But it's absolutely insane. Like, you're better off not wasting your time. Without any further ado, I'm going to start scrolling up and I'm going to start reading some of the questions you guys have thrown to me. I'm curious to see. We've been streaming for 46 minutes. First 10 minutes, I think, was just the intro, the countdown. But let's start having a look at the questions that I've got so far that are fantasy related. Nathan says, Robbie Rochow, job security isn't the best. It sure isn't, but I'm willing to risk it. If he's not starting second row, who's going to take his position? Let's have a look. Let's look at the Tigers roster right now. You've got the other Chris Lawrence, who doesn't play 80 minutes a hooker. The only time he plays 80 minutes is when the other second rower gets injured. I know that for a fact because I've had him previously because he was center second row dual position. Absolutely insane to consider that because he just doesn't play 80 minutes. You've got utility player Benji Marshall on the bench, Alex Twell, Michael Cheekham, who can play. He can play back line. He'll probably play second row. We've also got Matthew Eisenhuth. I think Eisenhuth traditionally is a second rower as well, but let me have a click on him. Yeah, he is second front row. I think Robbie Rochow is going to be good for 60 minutes. There aren't that many players on the extended bench. Man McIlrick is a hooker. Like, this is the reserves, 18 to 21. David Nilfaluma is a winger. Timothy Grant is a front rower. Milne, again, I think is on the wing. So all those guys, I think that warrants that Robbie Rochow has really good job security. Like, tell me otherwise. What's the worst that's going to happen to Robbie Rochow? He goes from starting position onto the bench. It's not that bad. I can always twist him back to my emergency players and hide him there while he makes money off the bench. He's 312k. Too cheap. Way too cheap. Let's keep looking around. I'll keep going through the questions. What about Chris McQueen? Could come in and take his spot. you know, I don't know, man. I think Chris McQueen's more likely to take Chris Lawrence's spot than Robbie Rochow's. It's going to be interesting. I'm willing to take the risk still. I'm willing to suck it up and take the risk and see how we go. You know, I think Elijah Taylor's going to be an 80-minute lock for sure. Probably, because he's just a tackling machine. And Ivan Cleary loves him. He's like a second son next to Nathan for him. So I'm gonna risk it for the biscuit there. And I love the feedback you guys are giving me. If there's anything that I possibly overlooked, let me know. Let me know, because I'm keen to have these discussions, because maybe you might help me out more than I help you out some ways. Feeder over Vaughan. You know what? They're exactly the same price, 798 versus 799. 2 peas in a pod. I think Paul Vaughan is going to outperform Feeder. You heard it here first, boys. You heard it here first. So that's my call. That's my call. What's going on, Fletchy? Robbie or Latu. You swapped Latu for Cassiano because he's at reserves. I don't know, man. Isn't Latu possibly not going to have the front row? Isn't there someone who's going to be coming back? Or I can't remember who exactly it is. I don't think Latu is a good pick anyway. How much is he? He's 328k. He's in the same bracket as like the Matt Lodge. He's starting prop. He's traditionally not that big of a scorer. I don't think he's got the starting spot down to a T. I don't think that's going to be the case. But we'll have to wait and see. That'll be interesting to see what happens there. I don't think he does. I mean, they could even rotate Ryan James to 10 and then... I don't know. The Titans are in trouble this year. That's all I'm going to say about that. The Titans are in a lot of trouble. Good rebuttal. I've got my front row and second row down to who I want. I don't have the excess cash to like. I could upgrade a cheapie, but I'm going to avoid it because I don't think he's got much in the tank. That's personally my opinion. What about your no Cam Smith rule? Look, I put my team together and then I realized I had enough money for Cameron Smith. Not the other way around. I did what an accountant would do. I put all my essentials first, my key guns that I wanted, and then I put my rookies all around them, my cheapies, my low assets, and then I picked up my captain, given the fact that Cooper Cronk's not at the team, and given the fact that Cameron Munster's going to be a fullback so he'll be having the kicking duties. Tedesco over Inglis. Yeah, but you know what? I don't like picking up players that come back from major injuries like Greg Inglis's. Yes, he could be playing in the second row. He could be playing center because he's center wing fullback. He could even... You could pick him up. You could pick him up 110%, dude. You could pick up Greg Inglis 110%. But I just feel like I don't have the money spare to do that. And I prefer Hayne over Inglis. And I think Tedesco's going to outscore Inglis if Inglis stays at the center position. I think he's pretty solid if you're going to put him at center, but I think you've got better, cheaper options and you want to put your money elsewhere. Mannering playing edge this year, Parcel Locker. Yeah, look, there's a lot of speculation what they're going to be doing with Mannering. We won't know for another month. So I'm pretty happy with Ligi and Papalii playing for the first couple of weeks at least anyway. We'll see what happens. Nathan Brown is a second row option. Yeah, look, Nathan Brown, probably one of Parramatta's best players last year. Probably will be one of Parramatta's best players this year. Solid pick. I don't think you can go wrong with him. I think he's good for your fantasy team. I just had other players who I wanted essentially. Remember, guys, always, this is my team. Last year, people might say it was a little bit luck, but after round one, I was coming 21st out of 100,000 plus fantasy coaches out there. So this is my team. Always make your own decisions and your own picks, but have reasons behind picking those particular players. The other day, I had someone tell me that in the center position, they've got the Tigers player. Let me have a look. Where are they? They have Essen Masters in the centers because he's dual position player. But if you look up Essen Masters is $523,000 playing at center. Yes, he is dual position. If he was playing second row, I would suggest that's probably a good pickup. But the reality is he's playing center. he doesn't have any growth. He doesn't have any money to make. So he's not my pickup. So you got to have your own reasons. I can rebuttal them. We can be here all night going back and forth. But it's pretty interesting stuff. Let's have a look. What other questions we got? But if I miss any questions, copy and paste them. I'm going from the top to the bottom, by the way. So I'm doing them in the order that they've been sent. Am I running a classic league? Yes, I am. The classic league that I'm running, the code, I'm going to put it in the chat right now. Here it is. We got 6 people in here right now. Here we go. Here we go. Where is the league? We've got a couple of people. I only just made it like an hour ago. So that's really cool that you guys have jumped in. Here's the code. It's in the chat. It's in the chat right now. It's also in the video description. And I'll put a comment down below in the YouTube video so you guys can see it as well. Going back to my team. But thanks for that free shout out. Really appreciate that. Gonna keep going down. Get Havali over Godinet. Nah. Why? Oh, Blake Austin's going to be playing. I think he's going to be rotating hooker with Havali. And if you've watched Havali play at the New Zealand Warriors last season, you know what? You've actually given me an idea. I can bring him in. I can actually bring in Havali for one of these cheapies like Corey Thompson. That's actually not a bad pickup. But he's valued at 228k. Now, if you've ever watched the New Zealand Warriors play when Havali plays, or the New Zealand international team when he did play, he is not a fantasy point scorer. He can play for 50 minutes and still only score like 10 to 20 points. He gets the ball from dummy half and passes. Yes, he does tackle, but he's not overly that big. I might bring him in. I might bring him in for Corey Thompson, who we're a little bit unsure about. That's not a bad pickup. Thank you for letting me know. Thank you for pointing that out. I overlooked him because I expected him to have a bigger dollar value, given that he played last season and the season before. But he's 228k. He's like rookie price for a hooker. I like that. I like that a lot. That's good. Thank you so much. All right, let's keep having a look. Jacob Little will be back. Godinet will be gone soon. All right, I'm going to write out Godinet. Let's see what he has to offer. If he plays the socks out of that hooker position, expect him to stay, right? Because Jacob Little hasn't cemented that spot by any means. So that's going to be what I've got. I'm going to stick with that. All right, let's keep having a look. Kurt MC says the win has the most points, not cash made, bro. Yeah, true. But you've got to have the money in order to get the most fantasy points. Money equals fantasy points. That's the given rule. If the first 5 rounds you're playing just for fantasy points, then stock your team differently to mine. But I'm confident enough that we're going to be sitting at this position, and I want these cheapies to make a little bit of dough on the side, and we'll be sweet. So that's how I play it. I play to make a final 17 as fast as I can. The best way to do that is by having guys who are going to make you money. So that's how I play. That's how I've played every year. It's treated me well. You may notice that my team might not get the best score at the start of the year, but then it quickly topples over. So we'll see how we go. I'm confident with this lineup. And I'm going to get on to the next question. BLJ says, you've got Slade Griffin. He's mid-tier. I don't know, man. We'll see how he goes. Break even 26. I think he's my exception to the mid-tier player rule. He's $382,000. He's starting hooker. I think he's good to go, man. I think he's got that spot down pat. He's definitely not going to be playing 80 minutes, but I think he's going to be doing some good work. So I'm going to leave him in there. He's kind of like the Jake Granville of the Newcastle Knights. And if you look at Jake Granville's spot, he's 510k. So there's possibly another 100k in Slade Griff. Keep going down. Fergus Berry. Brody Croft or Connor Watson? Croft, isn't he playing for Melbourne? Billy Slater could be back anytime soon. Brody Croft doesn't have a full-time spot, so no Croft. And Croft is 558k versus Watson 401. So Watson 110%. 110%. That's it. Blake Malone pointing him out. Jarryd Wallace will be back in. Jai Arrow will drop out though. Exactly. So Jarryd Wallace still has to come in. He could be coming in for Latu. That's the player of the Titans I was looking for, Jarryd Wallace. He's the starting prop. He could come in for Latu. He could come in for Jai Arrow. We'll have to see who performs better. I think that's how they're going to weigh it up. DC, worth it. We'll take most kick meters. Look, I've put my halves as Watson and Cartwright because they're cheap. And I'm just trying to fill in my halves with the cheapest players who I think are going to be scoring well. He's a fantasy gun. Daily trade runs at 715k, but I'm not going to grab him. That's just me. He's the value of what you could get, like a Jesse Bromwich, like a good front row forward or a second half. Something says, do you need a good half? Dude, you just need solid. Get Bryce Cartwright. Rewind the track by about 20 minutes in case you missed it. Definitely be picking it up. Let's keep having a look. More questions. You've got Teddy, Turbo, and French at fullback. Thoughts? I don't know about Bevan French. 474k. I think Kalyn Ponga would be better for 80k more. It's not that significantly of a price increase, and I think it could be a lot better for your team. So I'm going to stick with that. I'm just going to open up a window. It's so hot in here. Ligi Sal Velatu, yes, that's what I've gone with. Blake Austin or Cody Nikorima, both running halves, right, should be good point scorers. Yeah, but Austin's off the bench, so I'm not a big fan of Austin at the moment. Kick out over Papalii. I'm going to run with Papalii. I'm going to take a risk. I'm going to risk it for the Biscuit Boys. Yeah, Havali has never played more than 30 minutes in a game before, but should have value. That's pretty much what I was trying to say before, dude. He doesn't play that many minutes, but starting hooker, he should be playing more than 30 minutes. I think it'd be weird. It's generally really weird to have a player that starts and only play 30 minutes max, you know? Unless they're playing in the front row. Traditionally, I think the hooker would come on and play at least 40 minutes. Like, the starting hooker should be at least 40 minutes, you know? Who we got? Croft is not a fullback. Correct. Croft is starting a halfback for Storm. Yeah, but Cameron Munster should be coming in for him. And Billy Slater should be going to fullback when that all happens. Oh, Nigel Belin says Croft. Hey, Nigel. Is that Nigel from Renegades? Croft job is secure as anything. You were thinking of Riley Jacks. You are correct. I've made a mistake. I've overlooked it. I was thinking about Riley Jacks. Brody Croft is the set half. My mistake, boys. 558k, 55 point average. What does he have to score in order to point score? 38. I don't know, man. I'm sticking with my Watson and my Cartwright. I'm going with the same theory that they're as cheap as chips in the halves, boys. Booze Clues. Billy's injured for the first round, correct. Oh, Booze Clues from Fantasy Fanatics. How are you going, man? Yeah, that was a bit of a mistake for me. So, let's keep having a look. What about Azeko? I don't think he's got the spot permanently. I know he's on the wing. Isn't there a contention for Azeko to come out of the squad? Yeah, Jack Bird is going to be missing the opening few weeks of the season. Jordan Cahill moves to the center with Iseka getting a start in the wing. So I think if Bird comes back, he takes over Jordan Cahill's spot, and then Iseka gets kicked from the squad. So that's kind of like job security more than anything else. So I'm kind of avoiding that at the moment. Thoughts on Raymond? I can't even pronounce that. Fedela Mariner. What was that? Mariner. Second row for the Bulldogs. You know what I found to be one of the strangest things about that starting squad? The Bulldogs. Aiden Tolman wasn't starting, and he usually always starts. I understand they got Aaron Woods and David Clemmer. But I feel like Clemmer comes better off the bench. He's like the Fui Moi Moi of the Eels. Mariner. He's 389k. Look, man, Mariner comes under the same rule as a lot of the other guys who I talked about, like the Matt Lodges. I'm either cheap or I've got guns. I've got guns or I'm cheap. Or there's a particular reason why I've got them in between. So a lot of those players who are like more than 300k Like, look at the amount of players I've got between 300 to 500k. Bryce Cartwright's the exception because he's playing lock, but he's dual position halfback. Connor Watson's the exception because his score is based off last year's shortened minutes while at the Roosters, but he's playing in the halves. Slade Griffin's an exception because he's going to be starting hooker when he didn't necessarily do that while at the Melbourne Storm. He like came on and off for different positions at times, kind of like utility. Everyone else is either below 300k or above the 500k mark. I don't want players in between that meet unless there's a particularly very good reason, because it's that ceiling theory that I've got. That's how I've always played, and that's what works for me. It might not work for everyone else. A lot of people are picking up Takiako. I know that for sure because he's going to be kicking and he's dual position, 9.2%. So he's considered a fantasy. Generally, the rule is anyone below 10% ownership is considered a NRL fantasy. What's that? There's a particular word for it that only so many people have him, and he's good. He's good for your team. Not good for value. There's a lot of team about it, but I can't remember exactly what it is. So I think for me, I'm going to avoid him. I mean, again, this is just how I've worked it out. You can probably do it yourself. Play to a difference pod. Point of difference. That's it. Thank you so much, boys. Appreciate that. So point of difference, player difference. I think I've pretty much answered all the questions. Is there any more questions coming back through the limelight? I've given the best reasons why I've got my team. Hopefully when you put your team together, you've got your reasons. I know there's going to be a lot of people running completely different setups to mine, but don't get into that trap where you're buying mid-tier players and they're not, because I think that's the biggest thing that happens. Like, Takiako playing front second row. Let's have a look. Roosters. Yeah, he's playing prop. Will he play 80 minutes? Yes, he's going to be kicking. Does that make a big point of... Is that going to be a big influential factor? His break-even's 37. I know I'm a little bit if-so-fact-so about that. How many minutes do I reckon... Oh, dude. How many minutes do I think he's going to be playing? Well, given that they've got Dylan Napa on the bench, Zane, Ryan Madison's utility, Victor Radley, I think, is front row. I think I've watched him before. He's actually hooker? Surely he won't be coming in. He could be coming in for front row, but he could be coming in for hooker. I doubt it. Maybe. I don't think maybe 50 to 60 minutes. That's a guess, man. That's at best a guess. Generally, I don't know anyone who plays in the front row that plays 80 minutes unless an injury happens mid-game. There is little to no players. Second rowers, yes. Hookers, 50-50, depending on the team lineup that they've got. But apart from that, boys, I think that's pretty much a wrap for our first fantasy video. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. Me putting together this video. I've answered all the questions. I got another question. Sydney Roosters will make it to the top 8. Probably. I think they've got the lineup to do it. I think they've got the depth to do it as well. I think they'll be fine. Any more questions coming through? I think that's going to be a wrap, boys. If you want to join my league, be sure to jump on in. I'll post it into the chat one more time. I'll post a comment down below. Of course, guys, I'll be around every week, Wednesday, doing NRL fantasy videos. Give us a thumbs up on the video down below on the little thumbs up button. I don't know exactly where it is. I think I can look for it myself. Give myself a thumbs up because it really helps the stream. We've got 53 people watching. That's actually a pretty good turnout. 34 likes so far. Thank you so much, guys. I appreciate that greatly. But if we can get a couple of more likes, I'd be really appreciated. If you haven't joined the Discord, Discord is in the chat below as well as the video description down below. There will be an NRL fantasy channel open there. It's interactive. A lot of fantasy guys that are in there can answer any questions that you've got or just have a general discussion with guys. Last minute, late mail, any changes will be highlighted. And that's the best way to find out is if anyone else... There's always someone else who will post something, whether it be on the NRL Fantasy Fanatics website, their forum, one of the many NRL Fantasy groups on Facebook, the Reddit. Just try to keep up to date with the late mail because you never know who might get switched out last minute, boys and girls. Fergus Barry, we've got one last question. Join the league. Yeah, join the league, boys. Who could I put at second row? Already got Brown, Griffin, and got 710k. Wow, dude, you got 710k. You got so many options. How about this? Can you put in Jesse Bromwich? But do you have a front rower that can come down into the second row? That's what I'd kind of like to look at. There will be PUBG later today, maybe in about an hour or so. But boys, I might wrap up this stream. Thank you so much for coming into the first stream of the NRL Fantasy Fanatic, aka Spot the Aussie, your boy, trying to do his best. Let me know if you have any dramatic changes in your lineup down below in the comment section. Be sure to hit the subscribe button. I really appreciate it, guys. All the support, all the views, and I'll talk to you guys later, alright? Take care. Shh.